அனைவருக்கும் மாலை வணக்கம். இன்றைய இந்த இலங்கையில் குடும்ப சட்டங்கள் தொடர்பான ஒரு பெண்ணிய உரையாடலுக்கு பங்கு கொண்டு வந்திருக்கின்ற அனைவரையும் நாங்கள் அன்புடன் வரவேற்றுக் கொள்கின்றோம்.
ආයුබෝවන් හැමෝටම මේ සාකච්ඡාවට මේ වගේ වෙලාවක් අය කරපු එක ගැන අනු
என் பேர் அனுராதா. நான் மட்டக்களப்பு சூர்யா பெண்கள் அபிவிருத்தி நிலையத்துல பணியாற்றி கொண்டிருக்கிறேன். குறிப்பாக பெண்களுக்கு எதிரான வன்முறைகளுக்கு எதிரான செயற்பாடுகளிலும் ஒரு பெண்ணிய செயற்பாட்டாளராக பெண்கள் சட்ட மற்றும் சமூக நீதியை பெற்றுக்கொள்றதுல அவங்களுக்கு உதவி செய்யற ஒரு ஆளாகவும் நான் இருக்கிறேன்.
ස්තුතියි ආයුබෝවන් මගේ නම නබීලා ඉක්බාල්. මම ක්‍රියාකාරිනියක් මම සාමාන්‍යයෙන් වැඩ කරන්නේ සාම්‍ය සහ සංහිඳියාව ගොඩනැගීමේ ක්‍රියාකාරකම් සම්බන්ධයෙන්. ඒකත් මම වැඩිපුරම වැඩ කරන්නේ තරුණ මුස්ලිම් කාන්තාවන් සහ ගැහැණු ළමයින් සමග තමයි. අනු
அடுத்ததாக நாங்கள் அந்த இன்றைய கலந்துரையாடலில் இந்த சூம் தொழில்நுட்பத்தில் இந்த கலந்துரையாடலானது 3 மொழிகளிலும் இடம்பெற உள்ளது. அதை பற்றின ஒரு அறிவுறுத்தலை நாங்கள் வழங்கவிருக்கிறோம்.
ලොජිස්ටික්ස් ගැන කියන්න කලින් මම පොඩ්ඩක් මේ අද සෙෂන් එක මොනවාද ගැන සෙෂන් එක ගැන පොඩ්ඩක් කියන්නම්. මේ සාකච්ඡාව අද පවත්වන්නේ විවාහය, දික්කසාද, දේපල අයිතිය, ගෘහස්ත හිංසන, ලිංගික හිංසනය වැනි කාරණා යටතේ කරපු නීතිඥවරුන් සහ සමාජ සංවිධායකවරුන් සහ කාන්තාවන් විසින් තමයි අද අපි මේ සංවිධානය කරලා තියෙන්නේ. MMDA සහ GMRO පිළිබඳව සිදුවන සමාජ නෛතික පාර්ලිමේන්තු සාකච්ඡා සහ කාන්තාවන්ගේ අත්දැකීම් මුල් කරගෙන සහ කරුණාව පදනම් කරගෙන තමයි අද අපි මේ වැඩසටහන කරගෙන යන්නේ. ලංකාව පුරාම දීර්ඝකාලීන වැඩ කරන කාන්තා සංවිධානයන්ගෙන් සූරියා, MPLRAG, IWARE සහ WMC වැනි ආයතනවල තමයි අද මේ ඉස්ලා සංවිධානය කරලා තියෙන්නේ. අන්තිමට ශ්‍රී පුරුෂ සමාජභාවය මත පදනම් වූ අයිතීන් සාක්ෂාත් කර ගැනීමට කර්තව්‍යත් මනසේ තබාගෙන තමයි අනාගතයේ සහයෝගයෙන් කරුණාවෙන් කටයුතු කිරීමේ අරමුණත් එක්ක මෙම සාකච්ඡාවට ඔබ සාදරයෙන් ආරාධනා කරනවා. ලොජිස්ටික්ස් ගැන පොඩ්ඩක් කෙටියෙන් කියන්න. මේක වෙබිනාර් මෝඩ් එකේ තමයි තියෙන්නේ අද Zoom සෙෂන් එක. ඔබට ප්‍රශ්නයක් තියෙනවා නම් chat box එකේ නැත්නම් raise hand option එක පල්ලෙහා තියෙනවා. එතනින් access කරන්න පුළුවන්. ඔබට මේ session එක පරිවර්තනයක් ඕන නම් interpretation අර globe icon එක පල්ලෙහින් click කරලා තමයි එතනත් access වෙන්න පුළුවන්. Thank you. අනි
இன்றைய இந்த கலந்துரையாடலானது சமூகத்தில் பணிபுரியும் பல்வேறுபட்ட சட்டத்தரணிகள் மற்றும் பெண்கள் உரிமைகள் சார்ந்து பணிபுரிந்து வருகின்ற குறிப்பாக குடும்பம் சார் சட்டங்களான திருமண விவாக சட்டம், தாபரிப்பு, விவாகரத்து, சொத்துரிமை, வீட்டு வன்முறைகள், பாலியல் வன்முறைகள் போன்ற சட்டங்கள் தொடர்பாகவும் இந்த விடயங்கள் தொடர்பாகவும் நீண்ட காலமாக பணிபுரிந்து வருகின்ற தோழியர்கள் ஒன்றிணைந்து நாங்கள் இன்றைய நிகழ்வை ஒழுங்கமைத்துள்ளோம். தற்போதைய சூழலில் குடும்பம் சார் சட்டங்களின் பொது திருமண பதிவு கட்டளை சட்டம் மற்றும் முஸ்லிம் விவாகரத்து சட்டம் ஆகிய சட்டங்கள் சமூக அளவிலும் பாராளுமன்ற அளவிலும் சட்ட சீர்திருத்தங்கள் பற்றிய கலந்துரையாடல்களிலும் பல மட்டங்களில் நடைபெறுகின்றன. இது சார்ந்து ஒரு உண்மையானதும் அனுபவங்களின் ஊடானதும் மிக அன்புடன் ஒரு கலந்துரையாடலை நாங்கள் நடத்த விரும்புகின்றோம். அதிலும் முக்கியமாக எம்மிடையே உள்ள வெவ்வேறு கருத்துக்களை அன்புடன் செவிமடுத்து எமக்குள் உள்வாங்கி இக்கலந்துரையாடலில் இடம்பெற வேண்டும் என்பதை நாங்கள் விரும்புகின்றோம். இன்றைய இந்த நிகழ்வானது பல காலங்களாக பெண்கள் உரிமைகள் சார்ந்து பணியாற்றி வருகின்ற இலங்கையில் வெவ்வேறு பகுதிகளில் மற்றும் வெவ்வேறு இனங்களுடன் பணியாற்றும் அமைப்புகளான சூர்யா பெண்கள் அபிவிருத்தி நிலையம், ஆய்வுக்கும் மேம்பாட்டுக்குமான இஸ்லாமிய மகளிர் ஒன்றியம், பெண்கள் மற்றும் ஊடக கூட்டமைப்பு, அத்துடன் முஸ்லிம் தனியார் சட்ட திருத்தத்திற்கான செயற்பாட்டு குழு என்பன இணைந்து இந்த நிகழ்வினை ஒழுங்கமைத்துள்ளது. இவ்வாறான அமைப்புகளின் நீண்டகால பணி வரலாற்றில் வேரூன்றியுள்ள அதே நேரம் தொடர்ந்து நாம் ஒருவருக்கொருவர் கைகோர்த்து இந்த போராட்டங்களில் அன்புடன் ஒன்றிணைந்து முன் செல்வோம் என்ற நம்பிக்கையுடன் இந்த கலந்துரையாடலை நாங்கள் முன்னெடுக்க உள்ளோம். அத்துடன் இந்த கலந்துரையாடலை நீங்கள் 3 மொழிகளிலும் செவிமடுக்க முடியும். இந்த ஸ்கிரீனில் நாங்கள் காட்டப்பட்டது போல உங்களுடைய தொலைபேசியிலோ அல்லது கணனியிலோ பார்த்தீர்களானால் இன்டர்பிரிட்டேஷன் அப்படி என்று சொல்லி ஒரு பட்டன் இருக்கும். அதை நீங்க முதலாவதாக அழுத்திய பின்னர் இரண்டாவதாக உள்ள ஒரு ஸ்கிரீன் உங்களுக்கு வரும். அதுல லாங்குவேஜ் இன்டர்பிரிட்டேஷன் அப்படி என்று எல்ல தொடங்கும். அதுல பார்த்தீங்களாக இருந்தால் அதை கிளிக் பண்ற நேரம் உங்களுக்கு 3 மொழிகளும் வந்து காட்டப்படும். அதில் உங்களுக்கு பொருத்தமான மொழியை நீங்கள் தெரிவு செய்து மேலே ஒரு டன் அப்படி என்ற ஒரு ஐக்கன் இருக்கும். அதை நீங்க கிளிக் செய்வதன் ஊடாக நீங்கள் உங்களுக்கு விரும்பிய மொழியில் இந்த உரையாடல்களை செவிமடுக்க முடியும்.
Before we move on, I would just like to mention one golden rule that we will be following in today's session is that as organizers and as facilitators of today's event, we will have the final say about your removal from this discussion if you engage in disruptive behavior. I would just like to mention that before we start. And Anu, back to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nabila. So அடுத்ததாக வந்து இந்த கலந்துரையாடலில் நாங்கள் 2 சட்டங்கள் பற்றி குறிப்பாக பார்க்க இருக்கின்றோம். அந்த சட்டங்களில் தற்போது இந்த சட்டங்களில் என்ன மாதிரியான ஒரு நிலை காணப்படுகின்றது, அதே நேரம் முன்மொழியப்பட்டிருக்கின்ற விடயங்கள் என்ன அப்படி என்றதை பற்றி நாங்கள் ஆவணங்கள் சில தயாரித்துள்ளோம் 3 மொழிகளிலும். இந்த நான் ஸ்கிரீன்ல ஷேர் பண்ணி உங்களுக்கு காண்பிக்கப்படுகின்ற இந்த அட்டவணையானது சில விடய பரப்புகளில் இப்போதுள்ள சட்டம் பொது சட்டத்தில் என்ன மாதிரியான விடயங்கள் உள்வாங்கப்பட்டிருக்கின்றது என்பது பற்றியும், அதே நேரம் முஸ்லிம் விவாகரத்து சட்டத்தில் என்ன மாதிரியான இந்த விடய பரப்பில் சட்டத்தில் உள்ள விடயம் என்ன என்றது பற்றியும் நாங்கள் இந்த முதலாவது பர்பிள் கலரில் உள்ள அட்டவணையில் நாங்கள் கொண்டு வந்திருக்கின்றோம். அதே நேரம் அதற்கு கீழே பார்த்தீங்கள் என்று சொன்னால் பச்சை கலரில் ஒரு அட்டவணை உங்களுக்கு காணப்படும். அந்த அட்டவணையில் பார்த்தீங்கன்னா இந்த சீர்திருத்தத்திற்காக இந்த 2 சட்டங்களுக்கும்
reforms that are being suggested within the same substantive areas, what kind of reforms are being proposed right now. Kindly refer to this document in order to understand better the discussion. We hope this is useful for you during this discussion. This is in all 3 languages. It has also been shared on chat as PDF. So please download and refer to it. Thank you.
මේ නීති පිළිබඳව ඒ කියන්නේ MMDA සහ GMRO නීති පිළිබඳව තව වැඩිපුර තොරතුරු ලබා ගන්න කැමති නම් සහ ඒක අධ්‍යයනය කිරීමට ලේසි වෙන්න අපි chat box එකේ දැන් භාෂා 3න්ම document එකක් enter කරලා තියෙන්නේ. එතනින් ඔයගලන්ට බලා ගන්න පුළුවන් දැනට තියෙන පවත්වන තත්ත්වය සහ ඉස්සරහට තියෙන reforms ගැන ඔයගලන්ට අධ්‍යයනය කරන්න ලේසි වෙයි. Thank you. Anu, api speakers israta.
Yes, thank you. So அடுத்ததாக வந்து இன்றைய இந்த கலந்துரையாடலில் எங்களுக்கு கருத்துக்களை பகிர உள்ள நபர்கள் பற்றி நாங்கள் ஒரு சின்ன
අදහස් බෙදා ගන්න ඉන්න
பெண்களுக்கு மேலாக தனக்காகவும் பல பெண்களுக்காகவும் காதி நீதிமன்றத்துக்குள்ளும் அதற்கு வெளியிலும்
for fundamental rights of women within and beyond the Khadi Code. Women, including herself and others like her. Hasana Sehu is a feminist activist, researcher, and lawyer. He's a co-founder of the Muslim Personal Law Reform Action Group. In 2016, she co-authored Unequal Citizens, Muslim Women's Struggle for Justice and Equality in Sri Lanka.
Sulosina
Amirthalingam is from Batiklo. She has directly used the General Marriage Ordinance in her own life.
අය අත්නෝමතික ලෙස රඳවා තබාගත් පුද්ගලයන් සමග සහ ගෘහස්ත හිංසනයට ලක් කාන්තාවන් සමගත් ඉතා කිට්ටුව වැඩ කරනවා. අය MP
and works closely with the victims of arbitrary arrest or and domestic violence. She also has a family law practice and co-founded MPLRAG, which has been advocating for MMDA reform since 2016. She is currently serving on 2 government-appointed committees which are proposing amendments to the general family law and Muslim law. Anisa Firdaus is a teacher, women's rights activist, and co-director of the Islamic Women's Association for Research and Empowerment in Batiklo. She works with women-headed families and community women by providing legal aid and enabling access in Khasi courts. Sasireka Maria Sulodian is a lawyer practicing in
So இந்த கலந்துரையாடல் ஆனது எங்களோட 6 பேர் நாங்கள் அறிமுகப்படுத்தின இந்த 6 பேருக்கும் நாங்கள் 3 கேள்விகள் வழங்க உள்ளோம். அந்த 3 கேள்விகளுக்கும் ஒவ்வொருவராக ஒவ்வொரு கேள்விக்கு 5 நிமிடங்கள் என்ற அடிப்படையில் ஒவ்வொரு பேச்சாளர்களும் அவர்களுடைய அனுபவங்கள், கருத்துக்கள் பற்றின விடயங்களை அவர்கள் முன்வைப்பார்கள். ஒவ்வொரு கேள்விக்கும் முதலாவது கேள்விக்கான கருத்துக்களை 6 பேரும் முன்வைத்த பின்னர் திரும்ப இரண்டாவது கேள்விக்கான கருத்துக்களை 6 பேரும் முன்வைப்பார்கள். அந்த மாதிரியான ஒரு ஒழுங்கமைப்பில் இந்த நிகழ்வு இடம்பெற உள்ளது. 3 கேள்விகளும் முடிவடைந்ததன் பிற்பாடு அதற்கான ஒரு இறுதி சுருக்கம், இந்த நிகழ்வில் 6 பேரும் கதைக்கப்பட்டதின் சுருக்கம் பற்றி ஒரு சுருக்க உரையை நடத்த உள்ளார்கள். அதன் பின்னர் நாங்கள் உங்களுக்கான வாய்ப்பை வழங்குவோம். உங்களுக்கான இடையில் உங்களுக்கு இந்த பேச்சாளர்கள் பேசிக்கொண்டிருக்கும் போது உங்களுக்கு ஏதேனும் கேள்விகள் இருப்பின் நீங்கள் அதை சாட் பாக்ஸின் ஊடாக எங்களுக்கு தரக்கூடிய மாதிரி இருக்கும். அதே நேரம் கொஸ்டின் அண்ட் ஆன்சர் என்ற ஒரு ஆப்ஷனும் உங்களோட இதுல பாத்தீங்கன்னா இருக்கும். அதுல போயும் நீங்கள் உங்களோட கேள்விகளை போட முடியும். அது தவிர எல்லா பேச்சாளர்களும் அவர்களது கருத்துக்களை முன்வைத்தது
At the end of all the speakers, we will have a Q&A session.
තුනක් කරාට පස්සේ අපි ඔඩියන්ස් එකත් එක්ක Q&A එකක් කරමු. අපි එනම් පළවෙනි ප්‍රශ්නයෙන් පටන් ගමු. අනු
முதலாவது கேள்வியாக இந்த சட்டங்களை, அதாவது நாங்கள் இங்கே குறிப்பிட்டு கதைக்கின்ற 2 சட்டங்களை நேரடியாக பயன்படுத்தியவர்கள் என்ற வகையிலும் இந்த குடும்பம்
who have been engaged with these laws directly, what are your experience with regards to these laws as a woman, as a lawyer, as a citizen of this country? What are your experiences with the laws as they stand? Also, upon reform of these laws, what do you foresee as practical issues that may come from executing those reforms? First, Samira will speak. Good evening to everyone. Salam alaikum. My own experience of the MMDA. I want to speak about maintenance. When women have been abandoned and they access legal route for getting maintenance. When there's very little is given as maintenance in the first place. So it's usually 3,000 or 5,000 rupees only. In order for her to get that maintenance, she has to struggle within the court system. So for the woman in question, there's no protection for her. There's no way for her to proceed with educating her children. And if such a law is to be changed, the maintenance has to be one that is realistic about cost of living at this current time. And when that change does happen, she still has to struggle to access these rights. She still has to access a lawyer and the courts. She has to meet the lawyers even if they are doing the work pro bono. They need to access the laws for long periods of time. She will still have to struggle with the legal process to access her rights. Next, Hasana Sheikh, who is a dean, will speak. Good evening, everyone. Salam. I hope you can hear me. According to me, as a lawyer, an activist, and as a pen, as a woman, as a how these family laws exist in our current society. Laws, Sri Lanka, they were created during colonial times. They are irrelevant old laws that are not relevant to the times we're living in. And these are the laws that we are struggling to reform. There's a numerous long-standing challenges in enabling such change. Some laws are able to be reformed more easily than others. So when it comes to laws that are connected to women, there is a sense of dragging their feet on those processes. With regards to family laws, the existing society as it is now, the social realities in which we all live, these laws are not relevant to existing social realities, specifically when it comes to family laws. If we look at specific aspects within these laws, gender, caste, ethnicity, sexual attraction, orientation, marital status, do you have children or not? Have you adopted a child or not? All of these issues, there is discrimination in the law. We experience this within families and related laws. When you take up the MMDA, when working on that law, this is a long-standing discussion. To briefly summarize, so young children below 18 years of age can also be married off. The consent of the woman is not relevant to marriage. The huge challenges a woman has in being able to get divorced. It's the same right, the right of polygamy that is given to men. There's no standards, legal standards that govern the Qadi code strictly. These are all issues. So within this family law setup, when women approach this set of laws for justice, women's experiences, there's such a challenge. We need to we put forward the demand that we need to change. There isn't enough social political will to make these changes. For example, there was a banning of Burka recently in Sri Lanka. So Muslim men raised the slogan that this was a right of Muslim women to wear the burqa. But those same people do not use the framing of rights when it comes to family laws. The same group said that this is Western thinking and is being imposed upon our community by the government, etc. And this applies with both general marriage ordinance as well as MMDA and other family-related laws. On the one hand, this dichotomy is put forth, which is that do we protect culture or do we protect human rights? So my observation in this issue, when women seek justice, their lived experience of that, whenever women seek justice, there is an enormous amount of stigma around that process. A child married, if she accesses divorce to be able to get on with her life, she has to have struggles. She cannot rejoin school. They're not given basic economic rights. There's gender and sexuality-based discrimination. They don't have the right to make an autonomous decision with regards to seeking justice. Their basic things, economy, their economic rights, education, household, health, these are all intertwined with one another. And all of those are affected in interconnected ways. Thank you. I'll stop now and we can keep speaking about all of these issues. So I put a maintenance case in 2013. My husband went to Qatar. My son was 3.5 years old. My son was I was pregnant with my son. He became involved with another woman. When I asked him about this, when he came back, he went to the other woman he had a relationship with. So I was struggling with these small children. So in this context, I had no help. So my father raised me and 3 other sisters by themselves. I couldn't get help from there either. So I struggled on. I took my father. I was scared to go alone to courts. I didn't have previous experience of this. So I put a case of domestic violence. And I didn't receive any assistance. The police didn't arrest him. The court didn't give any orders. Son was in the nursery and I had to pay the fees every month. So I had to face many challenges through the lawyer. In court, I presented my case. I can't even buy soap. Should me and my children live or die? Are you going to give me justice? I said all this in court. So the lawyer spoke to the judge. After 1 year, they arrested him. He paid about 10,000 maintenance. So as I was struggling, I was scared of the courts. I saw many women in court. So I thought, why should I be afraid? I grew my own courage and self-confidence. I went forth. I wanted to show that I too can live. So when he is in a relationship with another woman, I can't expect assistance from him. My children's lives will be affected. So he was giving a little bit of money. Then as I would go to different places, there was all the stigma in society. Where is she going, coming, accusing me of doing sex work, a lot of harassment in buses. And these experiences have continued. So he wouldn't make his payments fully. So when it's 15,000 he used to pay, he would only pay 7 or 9,000. So children's school fees, tuition fees, house rent, electricity. So I've been through a lot in my life. So if there is to be changes in these laws, so we would need to raise awareness at the village level to help women assist one another. So women should not engage in making fun of one another, stigmatize one another. That women should get together and support one another in their struggle. That women have to resiliently fight these battles. We shouldn't be the subject of stigma and ridicule. So I wasn't getting proper maintenance, or even to prove that he's with another woman. So the GS who had to give me proof of that, it was like, how do I know they're in a relationship, etc. And the other woman, the woman who was in a relationship with also became pregnant. So then he refused to give the confirmation letter. So I'm here with 2 children. He is about to have a child with another woman. And yet the GS won't give me a letter confirming this. So DS then spoke to the GS. So then the DS asked the GS, have you been given a bribe to not give this woman this letter? So after all this struggle in 2018, I put a divorce case. I asked for 10 lakhs. Negotiations continued. It came down to 7, and now we've negotiated into 3, and that he'll pay 1 lakh. And first, and then it's been 4 years since then. I still haven't got the remaining money. So I can't get on with my life. I'm stuck in this issue. So when I was married at 18 and 20, the husband abandons me. So if her divorce case goes on till 25, 28, then what will happen to her life? How much ridicule she has to go through. So I faced many such challenges in my life. Okay. I can share more of my experiences in the upcoming questions. Next, Sasireka will speak. Sasireka seems to have technical issues. Sasireka will speak now. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. The organizers have given me this question. It's not a single question. It's Anu has given us a complex, multi-layered question. I would like to answer this question as my experiences as a lawyer, as someone who practices as a lawyer in courts that execute these laws. So in practical terms, in terms of family laws, so we commonly use the divorce-related issues, maintenance, and domestic violence-related issues. So in my experience, the biggest challenge that I've seen to not have a separate court for these matters is a huge issue. So divorce-related things happen in the district courts, maintenance and domestic violence in the magistrates' courts. So these are two different court systems. And they have different ways of executing laws in each of these courts. So a separate family court is really essential because in practical terms, we struggle with this. And also women are less likely to access the courts because there isn't a separate family court. So when they come to the court, they have to see others who come for other cases, neighbors, relatives, people they know. So to come to the court with these family-related issues in the context of it being a stigma makes it very challenging for them. So, because they have to meet people from the very society that stigmatizes them. So they are reluctant to access justice itself. Even those who do come to the court, they they give up their legal rights. And they just settle for less. They just get just the divorce. Even a well-educated woman who's living through violence, and as she continues to live in this violence, she is reluctant to put a domestic violence case. So after 4 or 5 experiences of the court, she herself backed away from her case. And the main reason for this is that when family-related issues go to the same court, the sheer amount of time that's spent, the number of times they have to go to the court, and we can imagine how that's such a struggle. Whether it's divorce or maintenance, for custody of children, these should be subject to speedy trial, but instead they are often dragged along for a long period of time. It's an elaborate process of evidence. So the amount of time it takes to go through these cases, the justice they acquire at the end of it is too little, too late. She puts a case for the maintenance of a 5-year-old. The child is 10 by the time the judgment comes. So it's not possible anymore to execute the judgment. When a 25-year-old woman files for divorce, so but when it takes so long, she is no longer able to achieve the her intended destination, what she wanted out of her life, what she wanted out of that case. Your time is up, but you can briefly make your point. So in practical terms, with regards to general marriage ordinance, so the reasons for divorce, for example, the table has been given to you. Those reasons, there are 3 reasons based on which you can get divorced, but in instances where a couple may want a mutual consent divorce, there's no such provision in our law. So in some judges use the existing law and speed up mutual consent divorces, but there needs to be a legal basis for mutual consent divorce, a separate family court, proper provisions for speedy trial, not to have a burden of proof on the woman for reasons for divorce or maintenance. All these things have to be changed. Starika will speak. First, thank you for the organizing team. The subject we are discussing, which is being widely discussed, family laws, was marriage, the General Marriage Ordinance, and the Muslim Marriages and Divorces Act. So we're discussing both these laws. Nobody disagree. In our experience, reform is essential in both these laws. This is the intention. This is what we want. When as a practicing in the district court as well as in Qadi courts, I'm in magistrate's court for maintenance cases. So as a lawyer practicing in these spaces, my experiences are widespread with regards to this. Just as Hasana and Sasireka put on the table, women are deeply affected for the majority of cases, women are the affected parties. So with regards to divorce or maintenance, when they approach the courts, they are in abject state in order to approach the courts. So currently I'm fighting a maintenance case in the magistrate's court. So when you file that case, there's no stability with regards to what the maintenance amount will be. Similarly, in Qazi courts, when Muslim women go, there too, there's no proper regulations with regards to maintenance. So in my experience, when we take in both of this, so in the magistrate's court as a qualified judge, and Qazi court also has a similar judge, but the differences between them are wide. So in both these courts, with regards to maintenance, the decisions are very different between these courts. So with regards to maintenance, some instances, we would have filed a case, but the husband would be abroad. Here, children and the children and wife will be here without any support. So in that context, they are in an abject state. They have nowhere to go to fulfill their basic needs. The woman has been abandoned. So similarly with divorce. So women are very they don't readily approach the court. To go to court, the expenses to go to the district court, they have to spend a lot of money on that. There are legal aid services that they may access, that we may say that, but how, in practical terms, how accessible are these things, and also how ready are they emotionally to be able to navigate all these systems? So in that context, women are reluctant to access right to divorce at all. So there's a huge difference between men acquiring divorce and women acquiring divorce. In the district court, when the cases come up, as Suriya mentioned, so those cases are heard in open court. There's no privacy, there's no in-camera systems. And that's a real issue because a sister, there was a case against her. She was the defendant. In that context, the husband was giving witness. As he was giving witness, he talked about her, what he thought were her physical limitations. He talked about it in open court. So the woman, my client, she began crying. So then she said, don't give me anything, just give me the 1 lakh I gave him as dowry and I'll just give the divorce and walk away. She just didn't want to go further with the legal process. I would just withdraw the case. So these experiences, this context is the one in which women have to access justice. This is extremely harmful for them emotionally. So in order to avoid such situations, the laws need to be changed. Thank you.
Thank you, Anu. It's very nice to be with everybody this evening. I am to Anu's first question. I just wanted to say a quick run of like all of the issues that we have come across as part of our work, and I have come across as being a lawyer through the work I do with my own clients. There are many issues that people face, including child marriages, forced marriages, wives who are forced to stop their employment once they get married, and then they're dependent thereafter, difficulties to get maintenance even while they're within the marriage, inability to protect their property, which was given to them by their own parents when they got married, facing immense amounts of domestic violence, very serious domestic violence as well, difficulties to even start a legal case, which we have already covered about, the cost that is involved, the harsh and insensitive treatment by the legal process, and also those within the legal process. Sometimes even lawyers, right? Delays in cases, and the continued harassment that women face when the case continues to be delayed. The financial destitution as a consequence of financial control and threats by usually the husband, and no rights to matrimonial property. These lived realities are part of the work that we do also. So Muslim women's experiences, for example, the move from the silence to expressing in safe spaces that they wish for a very different world, is something that we have seen. And they're talking about a world where they will be seen with dignity, with respect, compassion, equality. And today that has become a collectively strong voice for change. මම ටිකක් සිංහලෙන්වත් මෙත් කියන්නම්. මම කතා කරන්නේ මගේ අත්දැකීමෙන් මානවිකම් ක්‍රියාකාරිනියක් වශයෙන් වයි නීතිඥයෙක් වශයෙන්. I can see that there is some lack of clarity in the sound. Is that better? Okay, I will continue. මේ අත්දැකීමෙන් මට කියන්න පුළුවන් තමයි මේ විවාහ සහ වික්කසාද නීතිය ගත්තම නොයෙක් ප්‍රශ්න තියෙනවා. ඒ ළමා විවාහ වෙන්න පුළුවන්, බලාත්කාරයෙන් විවාහ කිරීම, ඒ කියන්නේ මුස්ලිම් නීතියත් එක්ක සහ සාමාන්‍ය නීතියත් එක්කත් මේ ප්‍රශ්න ටික එනවා. බලාත්කාරයෙන් විවාහ කිරීම, කාන්තාවන්ට විවාහයෙන් පසුව වැඩට යන්න නොදීම, එතකොට නඩත්තු ගන්න තියෙන දුෂ්කරතා, මොන හරි මේ ප්‍රොපර්ටි එකක් ඩබ්බි හරි මොන හරි දෑවැද්දක් දීලා තියෙනවා නම් ඒක ආපහු ගන්න තමාගෙම මව්පියන් දීපු මේ මොන හරි ගයක් හරි ඉඩමක් තියෙනවා නම් ඒක ආපහු බේරගෙන නැත්නම් ඒක නාස්ති වෙන්නේ නැති විදියකට ඒවා තුල ගෙනියන එකට කාන්තාවන් මුහුණ දීලා තියෙනවා. ඒ සමහර ඒ ඉඩම් නැති වෙලා තියෙනවා ස්වාමි පුරුෂයාගේ ක්‍රියාවෙන්. එතකොට වද හිංසාවයි කියන්නේ උහස්ත ප්‍රචාරතාවයට මුහුණ දීලා තියෙනවා. නඩුවක් පටන් ගන්න තියෙන දුෂ්කරතා, අමාරුකම්. එතකොට නඩුව පටන් ගත්තට පස්සේ උසාවියට යෑමේ උසාවියේ ක්‍රමය, මේ අධිකරණ ක්‍රමය සහ අධිකරණ ක්‍රමයට නැවිහත් වෙන පුද්ගලයන්ගෙන් සමහර වෙලාවට හිංසා වෙන්න පුළුවන්. නීතිඥවරුන්ගෙන් සමහරට එහෙම කතා කරන විදිය වෙන්න පුළුවන්. කතා කළා කියන්නේ හරියට මොකද්ද වෙන්නේ කියලා. ඒ අත්දැකීමුත් තියෙනවා. සමහර වෙලාවට කියන්න කරන්න කියලා තියෙන දේ නෙවෙයි කරන්නේ වෙන දෙයක් කරන්නේ. එතකොට ප්‍රමාද වීම අඩු ප්‍රමාද වීම ඇතුලේ තවත් හිංසන වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. තවත් හිංසන වලට මුහුණ දෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. නඩුවකට ගියාම එතකොට වෙන මුල්ම වශයෙන් මෙතන තියෙන ශක්තිය සල්ලි නැති වෙනකොට මේ නඩත්තුවට සල්ලි නැති වෙනකොට එතන තියෙන ප්‍රශ්නත් තියෙනවා. මේ දිහා බැලුවම මුස්ලිම් කාන්තාවන්ගේ අත්දැකීම ටිකක් වෙනස් වෙලා තියෙනවා කියන්නේ ඒ කියන්නේ ඒ ප්‍රශ්න ගැන කතා කරන්නේ නැතුව ඉඳලා සමහර තැන් වලට ගිහිල්ලා එතකොට අර ඒ සේෆ් ස්පේස් ඒ කියන්නේ ඒ ගැන ආරක්ෂිත තැනක් තියෙනකොට ස්පේස් එකක් තියෙනකොට මේ ප්‍රශ්න ගැන කතා කරන්න පටන්ගෙන දැන් අපි අද දින අපි දකිනවා මේ ගැන ලොකු කතිකාවක් හැදිලා තියෙනවා කියලා. ඉතින් ඒ කතිකාව හැදෙන එක නීතිමය වශයෙන් අපිට කරන්න පුළුවන් දේවල් ගැන කතා කරන එක ඇත්තටම ලොකු දෙයක්. මම මෙතනින් අතර කරන්න ඉස්සරහට අනිත් ප්‍රශ්න වලට උත්තර දෙනකොට අදහස් දක්වන්න. Thank you.
So all our 6 speakers have addressed the first question based on their experiences as those who are working with the law and with communities of women for a long period of time. Next, we move to the second question. So when the legal changes that are relevant to those in the margins of society, whether they're women or anyone else, what changes do such changes in law bring to the lives of women? We would like to ask you what your opinions are on this. First, I'd like to invite Samira. So, with regards to this question, in terms of why we want these changes, so as an example, parcel divorce where the woman approaches the court of her own volition to get divorce. So when the woman approaches the court, she has been harassed, has experienced enormous amount of violence. It's been so bad that she's desperate to find a solution. So she's just seeking some sort of a solution, and that's when she comes to the Kali court. They won't allow her to put a personal case. So then she's asked to put a case under the divorce provisions where both parties are allowed to make statements. So the woman initiated divorce, she gets no compensation. So the woman files under this because she says, all I want is just be free of this relationship, even if I don't get anything. She's not there because she wants to. She's desperate to get a small outside of the situation in her life. So there, when both parties are called in to put forward their cases, then she's not even able to get this. But when both parties have to be listened to, then that is prolonged, and when the husband is authoritative, he may say anything about her, and she stands there in her abject state. She stands there not being able to speak. So she would have contributed to the growth of the husband's life, economy, family, for his development. 15, 20 years, she would have stood by him. But at least ITA maintenance for 3 months that she is to get, whatever the court decides she may get. Apart from that, there is no maintenance that she gets in order to take her life forward. So in Muslim society, very few women have jobs, or they would have interrupted their education. Even if they had gone to university, they may not have gone for work because the husband or the husband's family would have told her not to go for jobs, or she may have been child married. So she has no skills, no background. She doesn't know about the outside world. She'll have 3, 4 children. She'll have her own parents to take care of. A woman with all these responsibilities is there with no support, asking for this divorce. And so she cannot access justice. She cannot access compensation. So how does she move her life to the next stage? So she has to be at home for 3 months for Ida, and then question the struggle of how she is to continue her life. It's a question mark for her. So when there is, if there's a change in this, at least if she's able to acquire the divorce, even then she has a long struggle. But at least in a bare minimum, she may at least be in a situation where she's not facing violence every day. So at least she's able to create a space for herself to imagine how to take her life forward in the absence of violence, at least the minimum that. So there is a long-term journey, long-term need, and long-term struggle for her to actually rebuild her life. But this is a small, minimal, fundamental right that she needs. And even that is not provided in the current law, and changes may make that possible. Thank you, Samira, for sharing with us clearly these challenges and issues. Next, I'd like to invite Hasana to address the question. Thank you. So, marginalized people, how they are affected by the law, as just law. When we think of creating just laws for them, I imagine many different marginalized people. I think of plantation owners. For a long time, they did not even have citizenship rights. In 1948, plantation Tamils were denied citizenship at the eve of independence. In 1949, a parliamentary bill was enacted to deny them rights, and again 54, 64, 74, continuously different people in power. The different agreements between political leaders, they were people without a nation till about 2003. So when it comes to changing the law in order to at least give people the right to citizenship, that's important. So in the case of this country, we are a diverse society, different cultures, different religions. So these legal changes are really important in that context. In the context of Sri Lanka, we know, if we look at the feminist history of Sri Lanka, women have struggled for voting rights. So many rights that we take for granted today, this is because of the feminist activists who fought for these rights before us. So now we vote, or we even choose not to vote. We have this right because of those struggles. So if we take up Kuwait, for example, in 1994, they signed the Convention for the Elimination of all kinds of discrimination against women. And they were to give voting rights. And until 2003, there were no changes. The CEDAW committee had to insist to give women voting rights. So there are so many such examples for the importance of legal changes. So if you look at family laws in Sri Lanka, marital rape is still not acknowledged as a crime. That is, rape of a wife by a husband is still not acknowledged as rape. or abortion, there's no legal recognition of the right to abortion. So these are all connected to one another. These are all a hindrance to the development of women. Even recently, a commission has been set up to look at abortion-related rights, and patriarchal thought within the parliament is constantly defeating such efforts to look at this issue. So when we look at matrimonial property, married women did not have right to property. So legal change made that possible. So maternity rights, the maternity benefits in their workplace, these legal changes made possible women working and having children. This is an essential right. With or without marriage, in order to register a child in the name of the mother, this also comes within family laws. So women's autonomy, for them to be equal citizens, these legal changes is what will make that possible. So when we talk about law, it can be parliamentary laws, it can be local laws. So with regards to caste, for example, oppressed caste Panchama children, that they should not sit in different chairs as other women. We in our society opposed imposing equality in order to support these children's education. So in order for us to live without oppression and live as equals, we need to change the laws. We need to address what challenges come into place when we try to execute these legal reforms. We need to keep reflecting upon our laws and changing it at different periods of time, and that will be a reflection of society as it changes. I'd like to invite Sulosina. So this question, so what is the importance of legal change? So this question, in the current context, whether it's maintenance or divorce. So in the COVID time, for example, we haven't been able to get a maintenance amount. So in the time it takes to get a divorce, life is affected. So the judge could have changed the situation with regard to maintenance, for example. If maintenance doesn't come for 2-3 months, we don't have any support. Only those with government jobs have been getting salaries in this current situation. So only some husbands with a conscience put money in the bank. Many don't. So, you know, children get notes on the WhatsApp, but we don't have money. I don't have money to put data on my phone. I live in a village area. It's it has been really difficult. So when laws change, so before changes happen, so a lot of money had to be spent for divorce. I couldn't afford it. So to organizations that help women, I was able to put the divorce case, and I got support from such an institution. But I still had to spend on transport. So if there could be speedy divorce, 15-20 days, then it would be much less expenses. And we don't have to face all the harassment and that I face along the way when I have to come and go to court. I can live a free life as per the life stage that I'm in, the age that I'm in. So I can move around society with courage. So there's a safety from women's organizations for women. So they are able to build their own self-confidence as well. Also, as soon as a woman is married, the maternal property that a woman gets, that's being put in also in the husband's name. So you're told that in order for me to get my own maternal property, my husband has to sign. So property rights has to be based on historical evidence. If it is in the name of my mother and my grandmother and so on, then my husband does not have any rights over it. So the land document should not be given in the husband's name. It should be in my name. So the husband can earn his own money and gather properties. So if my land documents are in my husband's name, now I don't know if he will sign those documents. But I don't know if he will. So my land belongs to my daughter, and I should be able to access that right. So when laws change, I have to deal with physical and emotional ramifications. I have to deal with the emotional hardship. We can't live with a healthy mental state. I've had to deal with intense migraines. I've had to I have to get injections in my head for this issue. So I have personally experienced these effects on my body and heart. So I'd like to talk more about this for other questions. Thank you, Solosika. Thank you for sharing your experiences with regards to the law. Affirming for all of us the changes that are important in the practical lives of women. You have shared with us very profound thoughts. Thank you so much. I'd like to invite Sasirika to speak next. So we've already discussed the challenges that women face with regards to accessing the existing laws, all the hindrances that are there for women to access justice, the continuous stigma and violence they have to undergo. So changes in the law are essential. We've already talked about it. But in terms of this, so you had asked us in the first question what the challenges are. So I'd like to address that question here as well. The General Marriage Ordinance, in the reforms that have been proposed, there's provisions for separate family courts. There doesn't seem to be any talk of family courts, separate family courts. So the district courts. So at least there's a reform that was brought in to ensure speedy trial. So the hearing to determine whether this particular case is can have speedy trial is a different judge, and the person who hear the case is a different judge. So even the initial hearing has no structure yet. So in writing, the reform is there. So even the existing laws, because this reform is there in writing, it's causing further delay of these cases. So speedy trial has not been executed at all. So in terms of MMDA, so if Qazi courts are to be done away with and those cases were to come to district court, there'll be a further burden on the district courts. So what are the preparations for that? How are we going to address this burden? What are the practical regulations that will be put in place in order to address this? So there's a lot of practical concerns or questions there are with regards to execution of these reforms. So when the reforms come, we don't know yet. This will be a challenge. The delays in practical terms may be further extended. So we need alternatives, alternative court system. We need increased judges. We need these structures in place in order to ensure speedy trial. And without all that, if we keep going with the existing structure, the challenges are only going to be compounded. So when these reforms come, women, we think that women will be able to exit violent relationship. Divorce is not a decision that women take easily. They wait 10 years. They talk to many people. They get advice from many before they come to court. They speak to other women who've had such experiences. So they are very reluctant, and only after that. So they even sometimes may be separated, or they may even remain in that marriage, but without divorce. Even if they are separated without living as a married couple, they may still not get a divorce. So they will make the choice to get divorce in an easier way. We think, if these reforms come, so that they don't feel the need to continue to live in violent situations. So in that sense, I think it will be a very positive thing. This sort of a reform will enable women to consider coming out of violent relationships more easily. Thank you, Sasirika. Next, we'd like to invite Arika. Thank you, Anuradha. People in marginalized sections of society, women, legal reforms are absolutely necessary. So if we take the MMDA, the executive elements of the laws, they're still not clear. So when there is movable assets that have also been given, there is some regulations to be able to return that. MMDA section 47, movable assets can be regulated, but there's no regulations with regard to immovable assets. So many women are affected by this. So there are some gifts may have been given between the husband and wife. So those assets, she is not able. She has no regulations to get those assets back. So these reforms are really important for this reason. So when the domestic violence law came about in 2005, so people did not know about the reforms. It was new. But today we are seeing the use of this law. The ways in which women are using these laws. there are limitations, of course, but women are using the law. So today, laws will have to be changed. In terms of general marriage ordinance, as the sister said, when the husband is abroad, so when summons are sent to him, we don't even have a proper address. So how do we take forward the divorce case? So there isn't the summons to reach him wherever he is in order to proceed with the divorce, keep the divorce, and rebuild her life. So those kind of issues in the law have to be addressed in these reforms. So in terms of general marriage ordinance, in terms of regulations with regards to dowry, there's no clarity. So specific mention of these regulations have not been made. So the reforms that are brought, they should be they will be reforms that will better the position of women. They are able to acquire the fundamental needs that they have. So with regards to maintenance, so the main how the maintenance should be decided. But MMDA, General Marriage Ordinance, Maintenance Act, there should be specific regulations with regards to that. So the MMDA, the Quasi is appointed. So if he's appointed and he doesn't have any legal knowledge, so labor courts are there, right? So they're also appointed by the Legal Services Authority. They're given training, etc. They may not have many cases, but in every district there is one. Similarly, with policies, when we bring changes, they need to be people who are lawyers, who have training in law, who are given proper compensation, and that such people are appointed. So that will bring light to the lives of women. That's my opinion. Next, we'd like to invite Anisa.
Thank you, Anu. On this question, I want to say that it is really, really important to change laws, because laws are a reflection of how we want to govern ourselves. Law reform is how we recognize that there are social problems, that there is exploitation, that there is abuse, and that there is discrimination, and we recognize suffering. Right? So when we start talking about changing laws, we are saying that these things are there and we want a different system. So instead of sweeping things under the carpet, we are as a country then saying we want to change the situation. Family law reform is about recognizing all the injustice that happens within our families. And we're trying to address it to make that experience a better experience for everyone. It is a commitment to have a different kind of better future. So when law reforms, everything is not good. There is a lot of other changes that have to happen as well. So the skills and the attitudes of the people using the law will also have to change. That will take time. So there will be many challenges. Challenges will be there from within our families. People will prevent women from going and accessing the law. Within our communities, there may be people who prevent the law from working effectively. There will be people who are using the law, the implementers of the law. They may not support women to access the law, and sometimes they may even use the law against women. I know and I have confidence that the law reform will have an impact. Women even ask me today, has the MMDA changed? I want to be able to sign my marriage certificate. has the general law changed? I want to go to court and get a divorce because my husband and I don't want to make allegations and say things about each other. We want a peaceful divorce. So I know that people are looking forward to this. Sort of very briefly, I would say the same thing in singular. ඉතාමත් වැදගත් නීති සංශෝධන කිරීම නීති වෙනස් වෙන එක අපිට ඉතාමත් වැදගත්. ඒ කියන්නේ අපිට මේ නීති වෙනස්කොට ඒ තමයි එහෙම තමයි අපි කියන්නේ මේ ජීවිතේ අපි වෙනස් විදියකට හිතනවා කියලා වෙනස් දැක්මක් අපිට අවශ්‍යයි කියලා. නීති වෙනස් කරනකොට අපි එතනදී අපි පිළිගැනීමක් කරනවා අපිට තියෙනවා සමාජය තුළ පවුල තුළ යම්කිසි ප්‍රශ්න වර්ගයක්. ඒ ප්‍රශ්න වලට උත්තර හැටියට තමයි අපි මේ නීතිය වෙනස් කරන්නේ. ඒ පිළිගැනීම හරිම වැදගත්. මේ නීති වෙනස් වුණාට පස්සෙත් අපිට ප්‍රශ්න තියෙනවා. අපේම පවුල් වලින් කියයි නීතියට යන්න එපා කියලා. අපේම සමාජයෙන්ම කියයි සමාජ කොටස් වලින් කියයි මේ නීති හරියට වැඩ කරන්නේ නැතුව දෙන්න කියලා. ඒ කියන්නේ ළමා විවාහ වලට නීති වෙනස් වුණා සමහරට නීතියට රහස්ව ළමා විවාහ වෙන්න පුළුවන් වෙයි. එතකොට මට කියන්න පුළුවන් දේ තමයි මට විශ්වාසයක් තියෙනවා කියලා මේ නීති වෙනස් වුණොත් කාන්තාවන්ට යම්කිසි යහපතක් වෙනවා කියන එක. ඒ කියන්නේ මට අද දිනත් කාන්තාවන් කතා කරලා කියනවා අහනවා මුස්ලිම් නීති වෙනස් වුණාද මට හෙට මගේ විවාහ සාපේක්ෂව අස්සම් කරන්න අයිතියක් තියෙනවද කියන එක. සාමාන්‍ය නීතිය වෙනස් වුණාද මට දික්කසාදයක් ගන්න ඕනේ මගේ සැමියාට විරුද්ධව චෝදනා දාන්න නැතුව අපිට සාමකාමී විදියකට දික්කසාදයක් අවශ්‍යයි කියලා. ඉතින් මට ඒ බලාපොරොත්තු තියෙනවා අපිට මේක වෙනසක් වෙයි කියලා. හැබැයි වෙනසක් වෙන්න කාලයක් යයි.
We'll move on to the third question. Generally, these kind of legal reforms usually these kind of reforms, whether it's in the parliamentary level, social level, legal level, we don't usually see broad-based conversations or debates. We haven't seen this in the past. We can almost say it hasn't happened with regards to some laws in terms of reform. So in that context, the current conversations about reform that is being broadly discussed right now. So whatever what do you feel about the fact that this is a broad-based discussion right now, and how do you think this discussion will impact your own life in the future and that of future generations? When Nabila turns on her camera and turns it off, that's why you will know that your time is over. Please share your thoughts briefly. I'd like to invite Samira. This is a good thing that's being discussed by different communities in the country. The small groups of affected women and women who help those women. These discussions were happening in these small circles. In those conversations, even people who are in positions of responsibility have not gone on with the debates. They said, let's not discuss these things to do with the Qadi court or anything else. They give different reasons and move away from the debate. This is not something we should be discussing. So now it's become a household conversation. So in the future, this process of reforming the law, the current generation is able to see what it takes to change a law. So the fact that it's a discussion that has reached different sections of society is a very good thing. So, for example, child marriage. So when we talk about the age limit, so the future generations, for example, like young children who have finished O-level, they've passed, they have good results, they're married. So when we talk about these laws, maybe they will have the opportunity to say that they do not want to marry at a particular time, at such a young age. When women have the opportunity to at least sign their own marriage document, at least with regards to putting a signature, they'll have some rights with regards to expressing their own opinion about their marriage. So this gives me hope that's being widely discussed. Asana will speak next. So, as I agree, those who have spoken already. In terms of organizations, national level, it's a good thing. It's not necessarily about whether the discussions are good or bad, or whether it's about polygamy, what are the negatives. Excuse me. Is it allowed or not by Islam? Is it banned? Can it be banned according to Islam? How are other countries negotiating the question of polygamy? So there's many discussions on many different topics. So it's a diverse conversation, and that's a good thing. So when it comes to legal reform is not the final answer. So other communities, in other communities, child marriage is banned by law. If there's Muslim women, it's allowed according to law. But all communities have child marriages in them. So in the Muslim communities, it's done unquestioned. In other communities, it's not unquestioned, and the rates of child marriage have reduced. So because of these discussions, there is an awareness about rights with regards to family laws. The attitudes have to be changed. Laws have to be constantly reconsidered. So to put in place a method to pursue the legal processes. So these kind of discussions, women are able to speak for themselves and demand equality. We are able to notice that women doing that themselves. So in that way, present generation, future generations, women who are living right now here, that's an important change, that they speak for themselves and their rights. Yes, Kolosina. So when you're in school, or right after O-level results, the girls have been married off. So because of poverty, children are married off at a young age. There's a stigma at the village level. there's issues within the larger family. We see cases of suicide as a result of this. A few days ago, a 15-year-old girl, a 16-year-old boy and her were married off, and they have twins, and they are living a lot of challenges. So I asked about this with of my friend. So they haven't been able to do anything about it the police or at the village level. That this is happening widely in that village. So when laws change, so within a particular time, we are able to bring a better state of being with regards to these things. So when these laws are changed, temple leaders, RDS, etc., there is a way by which we can talk about the abject state in which women are. We have a context from which we talk about these issues. So this helps reduce the stigma against her. Then there's this other practices like only when you have a male child, then only you're respected, or you're only respected if you've been married, you have the tali around your neck. So a woman who's a widow is not a man. A woman without a tali is not a pen. A woman without a male child is not a woman. But women create everybody. So when we change laws, this increases awareness at the village level. So, for example, to reduce domestic violence or violence against women, so those laws have to be executed at the local level. So, divorce, for example. So, marriage registration is a pointless document. It controls women's So the divorce is so difficult to get that marriage is prison. So when a man has proceeded with another relationship, for example, so if you have a daughter, I mean, if I'm a young woman who's got a divorce, I can't marry another man if I have a young daughter, for example. That's stigmatized. But a man can marry whenever he wants. So these legal changes will help to address these stigmas. Thank you. Please forgive me if I made any mistakes. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. Thank you, Sulosina. Sasireka. So, Sasireka, with regards to family laws in society, there's a particular context. So, in terms of societal attitudes, even among lawyers, so when we are representatives of organizations that address violence against women, for example, when we fight family law related cases individually, we also face stigma. They say, oh, here's that lawyer that separates families. Oh, she's put a shop to separate families. So this is among well-educated lawyers, our own colleagues. So as sisters have spoken, this is not just among normal people in villages. It's about whoever it may be well-educated people. Unless their attitudes have changed, the stigma is everywhere. So these legal reforms being discussed broadly is really essential. So any reform, any victory in that process, any freedom from any form of slavery or control, it has never happened without a struggle, without a discussion. There is no history of this change having happened without struggle. So in that context, debates, discussions, these are absolutely essential. So the reforms that are going to come, they may not be up to our expectations. We have no reason to believe that. So we need to keep talking about what the limitations are, how should we take forward our struggles. So in that context, for women to live in a violence-free situation, so in that context, I hope these legal reforms create a violence-free life for women. That's my hope. That's my faith. Arika. So in terms of legal reform, I think this is a right moment, legal reform. So those who are lawmakers in our country, so the president is a lawyer. So there's numerous lawyers who are currently in positions of power. So it's a good time for such reforms. So this is a healthy context. So that the broad-based discussions on legal reform is an indication of a healthy society. So when we bring in the reforms, some things have to be definitely taken into consideration. So in terms of legal processes, so for Qadi courts to move to district courts, that change has been suggested. So at the field level, so when these changes came, we don't, those of us doing this in practical terms, we don't know how these changes will take shape. So there could also be a situation where women don't want to go to other courts, etc. It's a long journey, financial issues. So it could also be used by men who may want divorce, and women won't go to the court to challenge it. So the age limits are absolutely essential. So it has to be, we need a way to, a mechanism to observe whether it's being executed properly. So as Hasana said, against the law, under the General Marriage Ordinance, child marriages are still happening, although it's illegal. So reforms are really important. There is a healthy atmosphere in which such changes are happening. So these changes have to be done taking into consideration everything that's important in this regard, so that it does good for women of all societies. So that's what I would like to say with regards to this question.
Thank you, Anu. I am really excited about the discussions that are happening about law reform. Even in this forum, right, I'm really, really happy to hear from all of the women who share their experiences and hopes and dreams in really is very moving. I'm excited because women's issues are an important subject, right? Because women have so little representation in our families, so little representation in our communities, so little representation in parliament. They don't talk about women's issues openly. And they don't look for solutions for issues that we face, or even marginalized groups. Issues that they face, they're not spoken about. So public conversations about family law is rare, and what is happening at the moment is very, very important. Sometimes when I hear the conversations, I'm also sad, because part of this conversation is the usual attempts to trivialize suffering and problems faced by women, to politicize these issues, and to try to use these reform attempts to oppress people and to silence people or to discredit people. So there is always opposition, particularly by those who are in power and whose power is being challenged. So we have to turn this shame and blame that we feel about talking about these issues towards the people who are responsible. It should be their shame, it should be their blame. They should be blamed, the decision makers, the politicians, the people who should be taking these decisions. And it is important for us women to be taking this space and talking about these issues. I know in the chat, it has been shared, the women's demands by MPLRAG. So to look at all these demands that are being made by everybody and to understand what is being asked for. It's important for the future generation, because if we take this conversation forward, they will take it forward from there. So if we don't take it even a little bit forward, they have to start from scratch, right? So it's our responsibility. මම සිංහලෙන් ටිකක් කියනවා නම් මට ඇත්තම හරි සතුටුයි මේ කතාව අද හැමෝම කතා කරපු දේවල් ගැන අහගෙන ඉන්නකොට. ඒ කියන්නේ මේක අපේ කාන්තාවන්ට තියෙන ප්‍රශ්නයක් ගැන අපි විවෘතව කතා කරනවාට වෙන දවසක වෙන තැන්වල ඒ කියන්නේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුව ගත්තත් අපේ පවුල ඇතුලේ ගත්තත් අපේ සමාජය ගත්තත් මේ කාන්තාව ප්‍රශ්න ගැන කතා වෙන්නේ නැහැ. හරිම අඩුයි. එතකොට ඒකට ඉඩ දෙන එක ඇත්තටම ඉඩ හැදෙන එක ඇත්තටම ලොකු දෙයක්. මේ සාකච්ඡාව ඇත්තටම වැදගත්. මට සමහර වෙලාවට ටිකක් දුක හිතෙනවා සාකච්ඡා ගැන අහනකොට. ඒ කියන්නේ මේ සාකච්ඡාවල තුල අර පරණ තර්ජන පරණ කාන්තාවන්ට ඉඩ නොදීම මේ ප්‍රශ්න ගැන නිකන් පොඩි ප්‍රශ්නයක් කියලා මත කරන පුද්ගලයන් ඉන්නවා. එතකොට ඒගොල්ලෝ තමයි මේකට අභියෝජන කරන්නේ. අපිට අවස්ථාවක් තියෙනවා මේ කතාව තුල අපි කාන්තාවන් හෝ නැත්නම් වෙනස් කොට සැලකු පුද්ගලයන් හැටියට ඒ ලැජ්ජාව ඒ බය අනිත් පැත්තට හරවන්න මේ වැරදි තීරණ ගන්න පුද්ගලයාගේ අතට හරවන්න ඕනේ. ඒ කියන්නේ ඒක අපේ ලැජ්ජාව නෙවෙයි, ඒක අපේ බය ගැන කතා කරන්න නැතුව මේ තීරණ ගන්න පුද්ගලයාගේ ලැජ්ජාව වෙන්න ඕනේ. ඇයි මේ හොඳ ක්‍රමයේ ගෙනාවේ නැත්තේ? අපි අලුතෙන් මේ උසාවිය ගැන කතා කරනවා නම් පෞල් උසාවිය ගැන කතා කරනවා අපි මේ කතාව පටන් ගමු. ඒක හොඳ ලොකු අදහසක්. එතකොට ඒ වගේ දේවල් ගැන කතා කරනකොට අපිට එන අපේ ළමයින්ට ඉස්සරහට එන ජෙනරේෂන්ස් වලට තියෙනවා දෙයක් ඉස්සරහට ගෙනියන්න. බොහොම ස්තුතියි. Thank you.
Thank you, Amisa. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with clarity with us based on your experiences of the law. So, few main issues that were brought up by all the speakers will be presented in a Anisa will summarize those points for us. Assalamu alaikum, good evening. The 2 hours we had a healthy discussion. So as women who are affected by these laws and women who work with these laws, we have learned a lot from them today. So the organizers have contained many broad questions within 3 questions. And sisters put forth important issues, important thoughts. So first, when we look at these
இரண்டு பொதுவான குடும்ப சட்டத்திலாக இருக்கட்டும் அல்லது முஸ்லிம் விவாகரத்து சட்டத்திலாக இருக்கட்டும், இந்த இரண்டு சட்டங்களிலேயுமே காணப்படக்கூடிய குறைபாடுகள் தொடர்பாக
the limitations. So especially the women affected by these laws. The one that coming up was that so their lives after divorce, maintenance related issues, the challenges that they face with regards to this. So the economic hardships faced by women was emphasized by our speakers. Also, the lawyers who work with these laws, Hasana, Sasirika, Arifa, Lisa, in their thoughts. It can be any court. This can be Kadi courts, district courts, magistrate courts, any courts. Women don't have a way to put forth their issues in a protective, in a safe way. They highlighted these points. This was an important thing among the many things they shared, that they don't have a safe way by which to share their thoughts without privacy. They cannot share their issues with privacy. All courts do not have this facility. So why, the second question of why do we need these changes? Samira and Celestina spoke about so before asking for divorce, at the moment of getting the divorce, and after divorce, a divorced woman, a woman who has sought justice, she has to face so many challenges. And after divorce, the economic issues of safety and stability for them, that they are not able to gain that stability after divorce. They put that forth very clearly. So the divorce can be from the Kadi court or district court. The issues they face after are common among all women. So in order to get out of this situation, the reforms are really important. So as Hasana talked about, reforms are always the result of struggle. So the struggles for these reforms are important. The reforms as well as the struggles for them are equally important for change. So yet another thing is that the reforms to law are important to leave violent situations. Women are in very violent situations when they seek justice, and so law reforms are important to free themselves of violence. So to get out of discriminative situations, the legal reforms are important. For women to have empowerment, these legal reforms are important. So in terms of so in order to get out of marriage without conflict all the time, to be able to peaceably gain freedom from a marriage if both people want that. So in terms of the third question about these conversations, what is the impact of these broad-based conversations on these family laws? So this was an issue spoken among small circles. The fact that it's become a broad-based discussion at the national level, that is a very good thing. Similarly, as Anisa said, women's rights issues are usually not recognized as issues. But with these discussions, that recognition has been given to women's issues clearly. So women, because of social control, because of issues of social status, women who don't talk about these issues publicly, this provides space for them to put forth their issues, that they're able to share it with others. For me, a very new thing, even for me, even the lawyers practicing family law have to face stigma. That was new even for me. So whether it's activists, we also face similar stigma. So when we work as in women's rights groups, we have faced the same stigma of us being people who want to separate, destroy families, etc., home breakers, etc. That even lawyers have to go through that. It's really sad. So this broad-based debate is we welcome it very much. That multiple views, multiple are put forth in the context of reform. These discussions at every level and the diversity among them is very welcome. So this is the summary I'd like to provide. Thank you, Anisa. We were hoping to close this at 6:30. This has been a very healthy discussion, and there's so much to discuss. We are hoping to extend this discussion a bit further. We'd like to hear the audience about this. So how do we keep continuing this struggle? What do we need to do? So there's a few questions here already. Is there any audience members who would like to speak? Good evening, everyone.
இங்க கலந்துரையாடப்பட்ட பல விடயங்களில் நானும் ஒரு என்ன தாக்கத்துக்குள்ளான பெண் என்றே குறிப்பிட வேணும். மட்டக்களப்பு மாவட்டத்துல கிட்டத்தட்ட எனக்கு ஒரு 16 வயதுல திருமணம் நடந்துச்சு. ஒரு 15, 20, 25 வயதுல என் வாழ்க்கையில நிறைய திருப்பங்கள், என் படிப்பும் கல்வியும் இடைநிறுத்தப்பட்டது. அதுக்கு பிறகு பல பிரச்சனைகள், பல சவால்களை தாண்டி இன்றைக்கு நான் ஒரு
face so many struggles, and today I'm a graduate and I have a job. So at the village level, the women who are affected by child marriage. So women's education is interrupted and they have to face many challenges. So we really need village level legal centers to get information on what they should do. They approach police stations where they don't get justice or the correct information. So be it Suriya or be it lawyers, that they should come together and at the village level, how can women like me who have been affected by this, this work needs to be done at the village level to raise voices for our rights. We hope to take this forward and continue this discussion with regards to this. Vasuki. Thank you everyone for sharing those questions and all your thoughts. I just want to share here that what some of the panelists.
சமத்துவம் என்றது முக்கியம். இந்த நாட்டுல இருக்கிற எல்லா பிரஜைகளுக்கும் சமத்துவமான சட்டம் தேவை. அதுல பெண்களுக்கு அந்த சமத்துவம் என்றது தார அங்கீகாரம் என்றது எங்களுடைய அந்த ஒவ்வொரு பெண்களுடைய வாழ்தலையும் தரப்போற நம்பிக்கையும் எங்களுடைய அந்த உரிமைகளை அனுபவிக்கிறதுக்கான அந்த வழிகளை அகற்றுறது முக்கியமான ஒரு விஷயம். அதே நேரத்துல அந்த சமத்துவத்தை சட்டத்துல சமத்துவம் வேணும் என்று 100% அங்கீகரிக்கிற அதே நேரத்துல இருக்கிற கேள்விகள், அது மற்ற ஒவ்வொருத்தரும் எல்லாருமே பேனலிஸ்ட் எழுப்பின கேள்விகள் தான் நடைமுறை. அத சட்டத்தை சமத்துவமான சட்டத்தை கொண்டு வந்ததுக்கு பிறகு இன்றைக்கு யதார்த்தத்துல இருக்கிற பெண்களுடைய வாழ்நிலை, அந்த பெண்களுக்குள்ள இருக்கிற பல்தன்மையான பெண்கள், வேற வேற இடங்கள்ல வாழ்ற பெண்கள், வேற வேற இனம் மதம் பின்னணி, அதுல இருக்கிற பெண்களுடைய யதார்த்த நிலையில அதை அனுபவிக்கிறதுக்கான நடைமுறைகள் அவ்வளவுக்கு இருக்குது என்ற ஒரு பிரச்சனை இருக்குது. ஏன்னா சட்டத்தை சமத்துவமா கொண்டு வந்தாலும் நடைமுறை ஒரு ஆண்மையப்பட்ட ஆணாதிக்க அதிகாரத்துல இருக்கிறவர்களுக்கு வசதியான நடைமுறைகள் தான் இருக்குது. ஏற்கனவே சட்டத்துல இல்லாதக்கான விஷயத்த கூட பெண்களுக்கு எதிராக பாவிக்கிற நடைமுறை தான் இருக்குது. அப்ப அந்த சந்தர்ப்பத்துல இப்ப இதுல சொன்னது முஸ்லிம் விவாக விவாகரத்து சட்டத்துல மாத்தி அந்த குவாசி கோர்ட்ஸ் இல்லாமல் ஆக்கினா எல்லாம் பெண்களுக்கு போகவே மாட்டினோம் சில வேளை என்ற விஷயங்கள் எல்லாம் இருக்க போகுது. இப்ப நாங்கள் இதுல பேசாம விட்ட இன்னொரு வழக்காட்டு சட்டம் இருக்கு, தேச வளமை சட்டம். அதுல இருக்கிற கேள்விகள் பட்டதில்லை. அந்த சட்டத்துக்கு கீழே அந்த தேச வளமை சட்டத்துக்கு அந்த பிரதேசத்துல வாழ்ற வடபுலத்துல வாழ்ற பெண்களே அந்த வடபுலத்துக்குரிய பிரஜைகளாக கருதப்படுறதில்லை. அவங்க யார திருமணம் செய்யறாங்களோ அந்த திருமணத்துக்குரிய ஆணுடைய நிலத்தை வச்சுதான் இந்த பெண்ணுடைய உரிமம் எல்லாம் வரப்போகுது. அப்ப பெண்ணுக்கு சொத்துரிமை தாய் வழியா வந்தா கூட அது பிறகு அந்த எந்த ஆணை திருமணம் செய்யறாருன்றதை பொறுத்தும் அந்த ஆணுடைய ஆதிக்கத்துக்கு கீழே தான் அந்த சொத்து வாரதாகவும் தான் இருக்குது. ஆனா அப்படியும் அங்கே ஒரு அந்த சொத்து அந்த பெண்ணிட பேர்ல இருக்கிறதுக்கும் திருமணத்துக்கு வெளியில வந்தா அதை காப்பாத்தி கொள்றதுக்குமான ஒரு சின்ன இடைவெளி இருக்கிறதால சுலோச்சனா சொன்ன இங்க கிழக்கில இருக்கிற பெண்கள் சீதனமாக 2 பேட்ட பேர்லயும் குடுக்கேக்குல வார பிரச்சனை இல்லாம போகுது. அப்ப நாங்கள் அந்த பொது சட்டத்துக்கு கீழே எங்களுடைய வழக்கமான ஆண்மைய நடைமுறைகளை வச்சிருக்கீங்களா, அந்த நடைமுறைகளை கையாள்றதுக்கு அது கட்டமைப்புகள், நீதிமன்ற கட்டமைப்புகளா இருக்கலாம். இப்ப ஒரு மனிதர்களுக்கு கிட்ட இருக்கிற ஒரு நீதிமன்ற முறை இல்லாமல் போனால் அவர்களுக்கு கிட்ட வரக்கூடிய நீதிமன்றம் இருக்குதா, அவர்களுக்கு பழக்கமான ஒரு சட்ட முறைமை இல்லாம போனா சமத்துவமான சட்டம் அவங்களுக்கு கிட்ட வாரத்துக்கும் அவங்கள சமத்துவமா நடத்துறதுக்குமான நடைமுறை உறுதிப்படுத்தப்படுகுதான்றது என்ன பொறுத்தவரையில முக்கியம். ஏனென்றா நாங்கள் கொள்கை ரீதியாக சட்ட ரீதியாக சமத்துவத்தை கொண்டு வந்தாலும் எங்களுக்கு பெண்களாக அல்லது ஓரங்கட்டப்பட்ட மக்களுக்கு இருக்கிற வேற நிறைய தடைகளும் எங்களை பற்றி இருக்கிற பார்வையும் ஏற்கனவே இருக்கிற நடைமுறைகள் எங்களை மீளவும் ஒடுக்காமல் இருக்கிறதுக்கான படிநிலைகளும் இந்த சட்ட திருத்தத்துக்குள்ள வேற வேணும். நன்றி.
தேங்க்யூ. நன்றி வாசுகி அக்கா உங்களோட கருத்துக்களுக்கு. நிச்சயமாக நாங்கள் அதை பற்றி இன்னும் கூட ஆழமாக கலந்துரையாடப்பட வேண்டும் அப்படி என்று நாங்கள் அதில் எந்தவித மாற்று கருத்துமே இல்லை. இங்கே சாட் பாக்ஸில் வந்த சில கமெண்ட்ஸ் வந்திருக்கு, அதே நேரம் சில கேள்விகளும் வந்திருக்கு. கேள்விகளில் மிக முக்கியமாக சில கேள்விகள் ஒன்றோடொன்று தொடர்பு பட்டதாக காணப்படுகிறது. முக்கியமாக கேட்டிருக்கிறாங்க, நாங்கள் இந்த சட்ட சீர்திருத்தங்கள் தொடர்பாக நாங்கள் இப்போதுள்ள நிலையிலிருந்து முன்னோக்கி செல்வதற்கு நாங்கள் என்ன மாதிரியான நடவடிக்கைகளை மேற்கொள்ளலாம், முன்னோக்கி செல்வது பற்றி அதில் இணைந்து கொள்வது பற்றி தாங்கள் ஆர்வமாக உள்ளதாக நிறைய பேர் சொல்லி இருந்தது. மிக்க மகிழ்ச்சியாக உள்ளது. முன்னோக்கி செல்வது அடுத்த எங்களது நகர்வு அல்லது அடுத்த செயற்பாடுகள் நாங்கள் எவ்வாறான ஒரு முன்னேற்றகரமான ஒரு பயணத்தை நோக்கி செல்லலாம் அப்படின்றது பற்றி எங்களது பேனலிஸ்ட் யாராவது இது தொடர்பாக நீங்கள் சொன்னால் நல்லா இருக்கும் என்று நான் நினைக்கின்றேன்.
Can you repeat it?
நாங்கள் தற்போது இந்த சட்டங்கள் தொடர்பாக அதிகப்படியான கலந்துரையாடல்கள் இடம்பெற்று கொண்டிருக்கின்றன. சோ இந்த சட்டத்தை நாங்கள் சீர்திருத்தத்திற்கு கொண்டு வருவதற்கு நாங்கள் என்ன மாதிரியான ஒரு அடுத்த கட்ட நகர்வு எங்களது என்ன மாதிரி இருக்க வேணும், அதில் எவ்வாறு ஏனையோர் இணைந்து கொள்ளலாம் அப்படி என்றது பற்றின கேள்விகள் எங்களுக்கு வந்திருக்கின்றது. சோ அது பற்றி தான்.
இப்ப சட்ட சீர்திருத்தங்கள் தொடர்பில் இப்ப நாங்க செய்ய வேண்டியது இன்னும் கள ரீதியாக இன்னும் சில கருத்துக்களை நாங்க பெற்றுக்கொள்ள முடியும். பெற்றுக்கொண்டதன் பின்னர் அங்கீகரிப்பாங்க எங்களுடைய கருத்துக்களை நாங்கள் அந்தந்த கமிட்டிகளுக்கு முன்வைக்கலாம். முன்வைக்கின்ற போது அந்த சட்ட சீர்திருத்தங்களை மேற்கொள்பவர்கள் அதனை எங்களுடைய கருத்துக்களையும் ஆரோக்கியமானதாக எடுத்து முன்கொண்டு சென்று அதனை பாராளுமன்றத்திலே பில் ஸ்டேஜில் போட்டு திரும்ப அது பாராளுமன்றத்தினாலே அங்கீகரிக்கப்பட வேண்டிய ஒன்றாக இருக்கும். அதாவது கருத்துக்களை நாங்கள் கட்டாயம் மற்றவர்களுடைய கருத்துக்களையும் பெற்று அதனை முன்வைக்க வேண்டும் என்பதா இதில் நான் சொல்லிக்கொள்ள விரும்புகின்றேன்.
ஹசானா சொல்லுங்க.
தேங்க்யூ அனு. நான் நினைக்கிறேன் மிக MMDA தொடர்பாக கதைக்கிறதாக இருந்தால் முக்கியமான ஒரு விஷயமாக இருக்கும். எங்களுக்கு தெரியும் MMDA ரிஃபார்முக்கு எதிராக சொல்லப்பட்டு கொண்டு வர முக்கியமான ஒரு கருத்து இது முஸ்லிம்களுக்கு எதிரானது தற்போதைய அரசாங்கத்தால் என்று. முஸ்லிம்களுக்கு எதிராக நிச்சயமாக எத்தனையோ விடயங்கள் நடந்தேறியது. ஆனால் அந்த விடயத்தை நீண்ட காலமாக
many things are being done against the Muslim community in the country. But this is a result of a long-term struggle by Muslim women. They ask for this reform, so this is not the same as other anti-Islamic actions being undertaken by the government. So the MMDA reforms, it is to be, we want to ask for your support to undertake reforms as suggested by long-standing women's movements. So these are demands by Muslim women. So we need to support this movement that's being put forth as it is being put forth by the women. Amisa.
Thanks, Anu. I just, in terms of sort of what can be done and how to move forward, I saw those questions come in. I think it's really important to know that there has been, that the Ministry of Justice is currently looking at legal reforms in both these areas, on MMDA, Muslim Marriage and Divorce Act, and also in the general family law. So now is the time to speak. Now is the time to raise the voice, and all of these issues that we spoke about today, to communicate to those who are in power, those who are we talk to on a daily basis, those in our communities, those who are representing us in parliament, to speak to them and say, no, this is not a time to be starting to talk about why should we be helping our Muslim sisters, or should we be changing family law. These are coming, these reforms are something that we need. These are the reforms that we have identified, and we want it to be pushed through. I think it's really important when we listen to everybody today. So many times we spoke about also how difficult the system is, how difficult it is to go through the Qazi system, how difficult it is to go through the district court system. So let's start a conversation on what kind of system do we want to see. Now we know some of the problems, we are aware of the problems, and it was great to speak about the problems openly. But we also have to start envisioning what kind of a court system we want. We want a family court system that serves everybody. Let's start talking about what the features of that family court system should be. So I think there is an interesting and important moment, and there is opportunity, and we should seize this opportunity as women, whether it's Muslim women, the women to whom general law applies. There is certainly something to do at this time. Thank you.
My deep gratitude to all the Muslim women who have been part of this reform process over the years, and that you have been able to bring this to this point, this campaigning to this point, both in relation to legal reform, but also in relation to how you have worked within the community to try and get changes in attitude, and how you have mobilized particularly Muslim women to speak. And like Misa just said, there is a lot of knowledge now about what the systems are and what they do. And in terms of next steps, certainly to try, and I think this is something we don't do very well as the women's movement, to try and think through what exactly we want changed. It's not only a few lines in a law that we want change, but what kind of family courts or what kind of system of support. It's exactly like the Domestic Violence Act, you know, that you need to allow women access to free legal assistance. You need to work in communities to change attitudes. Lawyers need to be able to work safely without this kind of misogynist attitudes. So I think the campaign has come to a point now where we need to work with a whole range of other people who have the expertise as well. And I think it's also time for the women's movement as a whole, and particularly the women's groups in the South, because certainly this whole process is happening in the context of very strong nationalism, particularly Sinhala nationalism, and we need to also be able to address that, particularly within the majoritarian community. So I would really like to see some kind of coming together to strategize, because I think it's very easy to put a foot wrong, and we don't want to undo, you know, years and years of very hard work. So we need, I think, to be able to figure out how to work together. And maybe today is not the time to have that discussion, but I would really like to ask all the panelists and the organizers if you can think of next steps where we get involved. And finally, I'm so grateful that you also had this session in all 3 languages, particularly in Sinhala, because I think for many Sinhala-speaking women, this is possibly the first time they're really hearing such an in-depth discussion. And finally, of course, that we need to also look at, if not all other discriminatory laws, the discriminatory personal laws. But that also requires a well thought through campaign that has to start from the ground up and done carefully, like the Muslim women did with the MMDA and reforms, of course, to the gender marriage ordinance as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Punita. Sarala, you can.
වෙලාව ගොඩක් පරක් වෙන නිසා අපි මේ වැඩසටහනට සහභාගී වෙලා අපි එකතු වෙලා තමයි මේක කරේ. මේක මේ අර දැනට අපේ රටේ වෙන නීති වෙනස් වීම ඒකට කොහොමද අපි දායක වෙන්නේ කියලා අපි අතර වුණ කතා බහකින් තමයි මේක මතුනේ. ඉතින් lawyers ලා අපිත් එක්ක වැඩ කරන lawyers ලා අපි අර කෙලින්ම ඒක ගැන එක්ස්පීරියන්ස් එකක් තියෙන කාන්තාවෝ ඉස්ත්‍රීවාදී කාන්තාවෝ අපි ඇක්ටිවිස්ට්ලා ඔක්කොම එකතු වෙලා අපි අතර කතා බහක් වෙලා තිබුණේ නැහැ. ගොඩාක් Zoom වලින් ගොඩාක් මීටින්ග්ස් එහෙම යනවා. හැබැයි අපි අතර අපි කතා කරලා තිබ්බේ නැහැ. ඒකට තමයි අපි මේක ඕගනයිස් කරේ. ඉතින් ඇත්තටම අද මේ අදහස් ෂෙයා කරපු Hasana, Misa, Sasireka, Arika, Samira, Sulosina, ඔක්කොමලට අපි ස්තුතිවන්ත වෙනවා. අනිත් එක සංවිධාන වශයෙන් එකට එකතු වෙලා මේ කෙටි කාලයක් තුලදී හොඳටම කොහොමද කියන්නේ සපෝටිව් විදිහට වැඩ කරපු Women and Media Collective, Suriya, IWARE, MPLRAG, Sisterhood Collective, පිටිපස්සින් නම් වැඩ කරපු සංශයා, තරංගා, අපිට ටෙක් සපෝට් කරපු හිෂාමා, ට්‍රාන්ස්ලේෂන්ස් කරපු ඉෆ්‍රාහිම්, ජෙනී අක්කා, පොන්නි හැමෝගෙම මේ කමිට්මන්ට් එකක් නැතුව මේ සන්ඩේ හවස මේ වගේ වැඩකට සහභාගී වුණ එක ගැන බොහෝම ස්තුතියි. තව අපේ සමහර groups social media වල ගොඩක් වැඩ කරන කට්ටිය ඉන්නවා. ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ links share කරයි. අපි prepare කරපු documents අපි share කරලා තියෙනවා. මේ දිගටම මේ කතාව ගෙනියන්න පුළුවන්. අපි එකට එකතු වෙලා වැඩ කරන්න පුළුවන්. මේක හොඳ basis එකක් හැටියට අපි පාවිච්චි කරන්න පුළුවන්. தமிழ்ல சொல்ல தேவையா ஜெனியாக்கா நீங்க சொன்னதானே?
நன்றி சரளா. சரளா குறிப்பிட்டதை போன்று இந்த கலந்துரையாடலான மிக குறுகிய காலத்துக்குள் பல நிறுவனங்கள் ஒன்றிணைந்து இதற்காக நாங்கள் கட்டாயமாக இப்படியான ஒரு கலந்துரையாடலை ஆரம்பிக்க வேண்டும் அப்படி என்று சொல்லி நாங்கள் ஒரு 2 மாதத்துக்கு முதல் இந்த கலந்துரையாடல் சிறிய அளவில் நாங்கள் எங்களுக்குள் கலந்துரையாடல்கள் மேற்கொண்டு இன்று இந்த ஒரு ஆழமான ஒரு கலந்துரையாடலை எங்களுக்கு நடத்துவதற்காக முக்கியமாக தங்களது அனுபவங்களையும் தங்களது கருத்துக்களையும் முன்வைத்த 6 பேச்சாளர்களும் அதாவது சட்டத்தரணிகளான சசிரேகா அவர்கள், ஆரிகா அவர்களும், மிசா, ஹசானா அவர்களுக்கும் அதே நேரம் தங்களது வாழ்க்கை அனுபவம் தங்கள் எவ்வாறு இந்த சட்டங்களுக்கு ஊடாக தங்களது அனுபவத்தை எப்படி தங்களது வாழ்க்கையில் அவர்கள் எப்படி பயன்படுத்தினார்கள் என்ற தொடர்பாக எங்களுடன் பகிர்ந்து கொண்ட சமீரா மற்றும் சுலோசினா அவர்களுக்கு மிக பெரிய நன்றிகளை நாங்கள் தெரிவித்துக் கொள்கின்றோம். அதே நேரம் இதனை ஏற்பாடு செய்திருந்த சூர்யா பெண்கள் அபிவிருத்தி நிலையம் மற்றும் ஆய்வுக்கும் மேம்பாட்டுக்குமான இஸ்லாமிய மகளிர் ஒன்றியம், பெண்கள் மற்றும் ஊடக கூட்டமைப்பு மற்றும் முஸ்லிம் தனியார் சட்ட சீர்திருத்த செயற்பாட்டு குழு ஆகியவற்றுக்கும் நன்றிகளை தெரிவித்து அதே நேரம் எங்களுக்கு இந்த நிகழ்வை இந்த தொழில்நுட்ப உதவிகளுடன் தொழில்நுட்ப மற்றும் மொழிபெயர்ப்புகள் போன்றவற்றுக்கு மிக நேரத்துக்கு எங்களுக்கு உதவிகளை செய்து அதுக்கு பங்களிப்பு வழங்கிய சஞ்சியா, தரங்க, ஹிஷாமா ஆகியோருக்கும், அதே நேரம் முக்கியமாக எங்களுக்கு மொழிபெயர்ப்புக்காக எங்களுக்கு மொழிபெயர்ப்பு பங்களிப்பு செய்த பொன்னி அவர்களுக்கும் ஜெனி அவர்களுக்கும் நாங்கள் எங்களோட ஏற்பாட்டுக்குழு சார்பாக நன்றிகளை தெரிவித்து, அதே நேரம் இன்று பங்கு கொண்ட அனைத்து பங்கு பெற்றினர்களுக்கும் நாங்கள் எங்களோட குழு சார்பாக நன்றிகளை தெரிவித்துக் கொள்கின்றோம். நாங்கள் தொடர்ந்தும் இந்த போராட்டத்தில் தொடர்ந்து ஒன்றிணைந்து பயணிக்கலாம் அப்படி என்று நாங்கள் எதிர்பார்க்கின்றோம்.
We hope to journey together. For we want to struggle towards a law that is equal for all women, all people. That we will continue together and work together to make this dream a reality. Thank you so much.